Welcome to Brave with Lisa YouTube channel. My name is Lisa Bruton and my goal is to inspire you to live bravely in that unique rhythm of grace that God has designed just for you. On this channel, we are going to be hearing from amazing people from all different walks of life who are bravely walking in that unique rhythm of grace and calling that God has designed just for them. I know that as we hear their stories, we are going to learn a lot. We're going to find keys that are going to help us to also walk bravely in that unique rhythm of grace and that unique calling that God has just for you and for me. I'm so glad you're here. And today I have the wonderful Elise Pappas with me. I love Elise. She's a friend of mine for about 4 or 5 years now. And I've just watched her stretch and grow, and she's a leader through and through. You know, she's a speaker, an author. She's co-founded an amazing organization with her husband called Awaken Leadership, and there's many more, you know, tools in her belt, and her fingers are in many pies. She's also a mother. And so welcome, Elise. I'm so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so excited to be with you today.
Elise, something that I have just seen you do so well is lead.
Yeah.
And you do it with this real feminine heart. You do it with grace, and you actually do it with a real gentleness that is quite extraordinary and I find quite rare. Can you tell me a little, before we get into anything too much more, I'd love to know just a bit about who you are and what's going on in your world.
Yeah, awesome. Love to. So yeah, I'm 35 years of age. We are married to Daniel. We've been married for 10 years now, which is nice. And got two young children, Jonathan, who is 7, and Sophie, who is 2. And they keep us very busy. And yeah, we've entered a bit of a different season over the last 12 months, had quite a major transition. And I guess a little while ago, feeling like God was calling us more to know him, not be so found in what we were doing for him. And so it's actually been really quite amazing this year, just being challenged in all sorts of areas, but just, I guess, finding that rest in him and being known by him and it's been really quite refreshing, to be honest. So that's kind of where we're up to now. And yeah.
Well done, because that actually takes courage to shift out of what you know, and, you know, the rhythm and how life is, and really shift into like, place it all into his hands. And so I can imagine that's been quite a transition for you.
Yeah. I was saying to someone the other day, it feels like almost like every aspect of of me has been shifted and challenged, and I guess being once again found in him, you know. And so I just think God is so kind to allow us to go through these seasons, but at the same time it's like I was saying to Dan, like, everyone needs to do this, you know. Like, I think at some point, like, walk out of everything that you know and that is so familiar. And I was hearing a speaker the other day sharing about the fact that one of the best things that we can do is learn a new skill, and it almost feels like that in a way, you know, where it's like going from something being so familiar to the complete unknown. And, well, do I trust God, or, you know, do I not? And so, you know, we often think we do until we're in these seasons where we're like, all right, God. So, so it certainly has been challenging, but exciting and rewarding. And our kids love it. You know, our kids, I think, have really, the time with them this year has been quite special. So we feel grateful to God that he knows best, that's for sure.
Oh, Elise, that is so exciting. And I can imagine you are also starting to find gifts that you didn't know you had, or dreams that you didn't know have been sitting there. So because you've given yourself space and you've given God space to move in your lives.
Yeah, that is honestly so true, Lisa. I was actually speaking to a group of year 11 students, female students, at the start of this year, and I honestly walked away from one of the evening sessions, and I'd never ministered like that before in my life. And I was so shocked, and I just felt like God was like, yeah, just, I guess, feeling like God was like, not really knowing who I was or what, God was capable of through me, and feeling like I didn't know that I could still do that when I'm not under this other umbrella. But yet it was like, because of the freedom or something, I'd seen God move more powerfully through me than I'd ever seen before, So I guess what you're saying is realizing these gifts and dreams and, this life that I'd never personally seen before, which is really exciting, It's absolutely the thing that excites me the most.
Oh. And it inspires others to watch
Yeah.
you do that as well, and to see how it unfolds. I just love it. I know that I've just read your book, and many people have read your book, and if I turn it around, it'll read backwards for people, but I think that it's called Promise Keeper, and it's about dreams, and it's about a promise that God gave you as well. So can you share a bit about that book, because there's so much gold in it?
Yeah, no. And people often ask me like, oh, why'd you write a book? And it's honestly because I was standing in a meeting or in a service one night, and I felt like I needed to start writing my story. And as I share in the book, we'd had our beautiful son Jonathan, after being told it would be difficult. So that was a miracle in itself. But then went on and experienced heartache in the form of miscarriages, and the grief and just the frustration, the disappointment, and all the things that accompany that. And then I felt like I needed to start writing my story. And so that book is really the journey over the 3-4 years while we were feeling like God had clearly given us this promise of this little girl, to the point where we'd even had her name made up in a name sign for her bedroom, and all of these faith elements. But over those 3 or 4 years, just writing down. And so it's really, I guess, our story, but also very much the lessons that we learned, and some of even the key messages that God gave me through that season, to help minister to others. And so, yeah, so it's and really exciting hearing, obviously, some of the reports back of just how it's helping people. So yeah.
And I can only imagine that from walking that and holding such a big dream, and from what I've read, it was really a promise that looked impossible almost. And and it wasn't like it happened straight away. You had to carry this dream for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that at the moment, all the lessons you learned there, you're also putting it into practice.
Yeah.
They're lessons, right? They're lessons that stay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I love that you just said was that you actually wrote her name. So you wrote the promise out, and not only like you had it made up, ready, waiting.
Yeah.
That's an incredible strategy in itself.
That's true. Yeah, that's so true. And it was literally like after another miscarriage, and then another miscarriage, and then another disappointment, or season or 6 months of just nothing, and waiting on God, pulling that out and being like, no, God, like you promised, even though what we were seeing in the natural was completely contrary to what was happening, or what we were believing for in the supernatural, I guess. And so it's putting, like you're saying, that trust and faith, and keep going back to God's word, and that his promises are true, and that his promises are yes and amen, and despite what you're seeing going on. And so I think for us, that definitely was a tool that helped us as well, without even realizing it at the time. It was after a miscarriage when I literally that night ordered that sign, because I thought, no, God, like I'm not going to have this. And so I'm like,
Wow.
and then those people making it and delivering it probably thinking, oh, this woman's just had this baby, but it was like the complete opposite. But yeah, it definitely became a key part of our journey, that name sign. And so to see it now, obviously hanging up in her bedroom, I just smile at it. It's got such meaning and touch to it.
And it sounds like it was such a stake in the ground as well.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of other people who are listening in at the moment, who are carrying that that big dream that looks impossible, but they know is from God, what's something that we can do to like do the stake in the ground, whether we order a name or whatever it may be, but something that we can physically hold on to and to look at while we wait and trust God with that dream. I love that.
Yeah.
I would love to also ask you, Elise, you know, like you said, you're holding this big dream, and even to the people who are delivering the sign that's got your daughter's, you know, daughter's name on it, thinks that it's for a baby, but actually it's a promise. So you're holding this promise, you're holding this dream for years, and in the natural, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. How do you hold that with people walking alongside you? Because some I would know would totally be on board and believing with you, and others would be saying, sweetheart, is it time to kind of let it go?
Yeah, that's such a good thing. And I remember reading in the Bible and just how there were things that Mary just held close to her heart, even when she was raising Jesus. And I was just at that time thinking, there are certain things that even when we're waiting on a promise and we believe like it's going to happen, but yet to other people it can seem slightly crazy, and sometimes we can feel crazy for believing it, in a way. I remember I certainly did. I'm like, am I crazy? Because but that's what having faith is, right? Like there's so many stories in the Bible of people, Noah building an ark when it's not raining and all of these sorts of things. Anyway, and so it was really quite hard though. Like obviously I think remember someone saying you got to keep quiet in your soul, and I just remember there were things that we just wouldn't share. There were things, it was such it's such a personal journey, and I think that's really important for people and whatever they're believing for, but then there's other people that will walk alongside you, and those people are so imperative, to that part of your journey, and you need them, and God uses those people, and he'll use them and speak through them and encourage you. And I that was one of the things that I just was so amazed, even by God's kindness, receiving, whether it was little girls' booties or, at different points along the journey, it was like a woman would walk up. I really felt to give this to you. And like these, I call them like sweet pieces of fruit in a way, where it was just like in such a dry season, this refreshment, and no, keep believing. And I know that we're not, to live by those signs, but I think God uses them, and he knows what we need. And so I think, it's one of those tricky things, knowing who to share and what to share who with, kind of thing, you know what I mean? But I think you've just got to really use discretion there, and really know that I still need to involve people, but I need to be selective of who I involve. And even when those who are involved may say things because they want the best for you, but it might be again contrary to what you're believing. It's again going back, I think, in prayer and to God, and being like, well, God, what do you think? I'd often be like, what do you think? And I'd either receive encouragement, to keep on believing, and being like, no, this is what is said, so, and loving and respecting. But it's a tricky season. It's a tricky thing to navigate.
It sure is. And I also wonder, I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Yes.
But so it goes for anything that we're hoping and waiting on God for. How did you feel when you're waiting for your daughter? You're waiting for that pregnancy and to hold your baby in your arms, and you're watching other people have babies and receive that blessing from God. Was that hard at times?
I always wanted to be someone who would encourage others, no matter what was going on. And I think many of us are like that. There were definitely moments where I realized I was just feeling sorry for myself, like I wanted it to happen, but it hadn't. And and at the same time, I think I'd already probably worked on a little bit of comparison in my journey earlier on. So when other friends fell pregnant, I didn't really ever think, oh, but what about me? You know, it was more so moments when I thought about where my life should be. You know, I wanted kids 2 years apart, and I wanted to have my children done by the time I was 31 years of age, you know, like, so I think I compared, our to where I thought we should be in life. But in saying that though, like there's definitely moments, and I guess that's where I felt a little bit stuck sometimes when, and just in a bit of a holding pattern, when I would feel like everyone else's life was racing ahead. And I felt like we're still here believing, you know, like we're still here trying to do all we can in a way to make this happen, something that should be quite easy, you know. So that was definitely hard. Yeah.
And so how did you navigate that feeling of being in a holding pattern while others ahead, I guess?
Yeah. And I guess that was it, like just not giving up, you know, and for anyone that's, you know, believing for something, it's that constant battle, I think, of like, I can see it, but yet the opposite is happening. And it's like, are you overcome by the disappointments or the frustrations that it's not? Or are you like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to put a stake in the ground. We're going to, you know, keep pushing through, get a second doctor's opinion, you know, seek whether it's further medical advice or financial, whatever it could be. But I think those things were the tricky things. And I know for us, especially around the doctors and infertility, and when, you know, something so unknown, and just knowing who to see. And but then I think God's timing and learning to wait on God was a huge thing. That whole being quiet in your soul and not just becoming frustrated or impatient, that was a huge lesson for me. And I think God's timing is always perfect, right? So it's like, if it's not now, it doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It's just, you know, and I think that was probably, one of the biggest lessons is to wait on him. And then it's like in his timing, it was just like bang, 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 bang. One thing after another just started happening suddenly, you know, where it was like this dry season was then like, oh my goodness, you know, amazing miracles. But yet, like the last few years, I'm like, where are you, Lord? It's a desert out here.
You were honest in your desert.
Yeah.
Just going, okay, Lord, I'm struggling. This is hard, and not trying to push down the feelings, but actually very much bringing them to him.
Yeah.
Did you find you were speaking about getting those fruits, having those fruits when you're in the dry season or in the desert, and you said a lot of them came in the form of encouragement from other people. Were there other things that God did just to continue to encourage you and affirm you in the promise?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think and in that time, remember one night I was just frustrated. I think, you know, it was something had happened, and you know, we were trying to fall pregnant, and it was again a negative result. And driving down, I think I do talk about it in the book, but literally like driving down to the beach and looking at these two different trees that, you know, weathered by the winds and the way of storms, and one of them was almost non-existent, and the other one was strong, and it looked like it could bend. It was flexible, and just that comparison, I think, was something that I carried. I'd seen people go through things, and, you know, they ended up just, it was like their heart got destroyed, and they were just, and that's it makes me teary, because it's like people just end up disgruntled and they hate life. And so to get to that point where you're like, regardless of whether this promise comes to pass, I'm still going to praise him. I've still got a son that I want to raise, and I want to raise him well. And I think to get to that place, even in a dry season, where it's like you've got to keep encouraging yourself, you know, and relying on God and relying on others. And I think that is a big thing, almost being determined within yourself, like, I will not give up, like, I will not lose my faith here. And even though sometimes you just feel like you're laying flat, it's like, I will encourage myself in the Lord, if nothing else, because other people and my future life depends on it. I don't want to come out of this in a different way, and God uses everything, right, we go through to shape us. So that was important to me for sure.
And there's something that requires such strength and determination to keep your heart soft.
Yes.
And I've seen you do that and do it so well. And it has meant that so much has flowed from that season. So well done. I know that. So let's jump to where you found out that you were pregnant with your daughter.
Yeah.
What was that like? And was it actually, did you embrace it wholeheartedly and go, this is it? Or was there the element of fear and doubt?
Yeah. I genuinely felt like this is it, like, but still I had to be so disciplined that I didn't allow fear to creep in. And I continued, continued to claim this promise. No, this is our daughter, this is Sophie, this is, your promise, Lord. And even, when we got the scan done and he couldn't find her, and he had to pull the equipment back out after I was like, no, you're wrong, I'm pregnant, I know she's there. And then thankfully he rescanned and found her little heart beating away. But like, crazy to continue to declare, like, just got to keep declaring, like, I know it's like God's already done it, but like, I think till we really believe it and we really see it. And the funny thing was, though, is that I always struggled between that 5 and 7 weeks, was always when I'd kind of find out that all my results were drastically going down. But with Sophie, they actually thought I was 2 weeks further ahead. And so even that, I just thought, gosh, God, you're amazing. So when I probably would have been really worried around the 5-week mark, I was being told, oh, you're 7 weeks, and I just think God's so in every detail, and I know. And I just, like, my sister at the time, Lauren, she was just like, that's unbelievable, Elise. Like, because my thing was, we just need to get to 7 weeks. We just need to get to 7 weeks. And then the whole time they're telling me 7 weeks when I was only 5, and I'm just like, what? And then when we had the scan, the 20-week scan to confirm that, it was Sophie. And the sonographer was just like, it's a girl. And I'd been longing to hear those words. And when he said that, Daniel and I just both started crying. And then the sonographer who knew our story, then he was just like, oh my goodness, how amazing. I'm so honored to be a part of your story. And so that was one of the, obviously, the really amazing things, is the nurses and all the people involved in that part of our journey, to be like, even the specialist who couldn't find her beating heart at the start, but then ends up, writing a referral to a local obstetrician, saying they ended up doing it themselves with a little help from above. And, and he had no relationship with God. So that was just God using, I think, like he does all of our stories.
Absolutely. And you have no idea what those seeds of them just being a part of your story has done in their hearts. And incredible. I love that you said that you had to be diligent to not allow fear in.
Yes.
Declaring. Would you do that daily? Like, just declaring over your
being? Absolutely. And I remember, like, we were taking even communion, but I think that was a big thing. And I think even until we had her, well, even before that, every month it would be just a little bit more, I'd relax, and it's really awful, because it's like, it really is an exciting time, but for anyone, you're like, oh, once I have her out. And so but I had to, because I wanted to enjoy it as well. You don't want to just be worried or anxious the entire time, like, that's not good for you or the baby. So I definitely think declaring it and just thanking Lord and putting on worship music and taking your focus off of yourself is always helpful.
Yeah. True, isn't it? Do you have a favorite scripture or something in particular that you would say each day or just really lean on?
Yeah, even in Isaiah 55:11, when it says like your word will never return void, and that's just, even without this book, it's just been a constant thing. In whatever way, shape, or form, you will use the words on those pages, and your word will not return void, Lord. And I think even with Sophie, like he sends, you know, his word out to achieve the purpose for which he sent it, and I love that. You know, nothing is, you know, so often I might say things and I'm like, oh, I didn't really mean that, or you know what I mean, but that's not God. And I think just holding on, and even I love the Passion Translation and in the Psalms, and it talks about how he held back the oceans to make the dry grounds appear. And for me, it was literally like that was a bit of a turning point, even when we were believing that I would hold a pregnancy, that I'd be able to like carry another child. It would like he would, if he can hold back the oceans, you know, to make dry ground appear, then he can surely he can, you know, allow my body and make it carry another child. And so that was another key scripture, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's an incredible piece of scripture, and
Yeah.
I'll be looking that up later.
Yeah.
I have to tell this story. So last year, Elise felt to gift me a number of books of The Promise Keeper. And so I held on to it. She's just said, I just know you'll know what to do with it. And I run retreats, and we were about to begin this retreat, and I just felt this really strong prompting, grab those books, they're for these women on the retreat. And little did I know, I had no idea, but there was about 4 or 5 women who were walking a really similar road to you and believing for babies and had miscarriages. And there were also other women, all of them had big dreams that they were holding, and that God was affirming and confirming for them on that retreat. And so right at the end, I brought out your book and I said, and I told them the story, how you gifted them to me, and God said, this is the retreat to hand it out to. Yeah. And I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. And honestly, it was beautiful too, because I think we handed it out at lunchtime, but by the afternoon, everyone was just lounged all around different areas of the retreat with the book. And so even that in itself, just the title Promise Keeper had people touch them deeply. And then, you know, so there's just, and I know there's so many stories behind this book, and the way that you so vulnerably shared holding the dream and holding the promise. Are there any other tips that you would give someone right now if they were standing in front of you and were holding this big dream and a promise from God? Any other tips that you would say? Because I know we've mentioned quite a few already.
Yeah. And if you're a journaler, like I would definitely encourage to continue journaling, even if it's the smallest thing. Like that was such a key part of the journey, because you look back and you get encouraged, and the scriptures, and because it's so much about what God's doing in us, right? And that, you know, the fruit that it will be produced from that season. And so I would just really encourage to look at like where you've come from, and no matter what sphere of influence you are, not to give up, to really keep declaring, keep putting worship music on, and get other people that will hold you accountable, you know, like that will, well, what about that? You know, you said this, or you said you were believing for that. Like, where are you at now? Like, what are you doing about it? And because I think, you know, life, we get distracted, and sometimes when the big dreams, they seem too far gone, or just too far in general, we need those friendly reminders of God being like, hey, you know. So I think just having key people in your life who will hold you accountable, and just speak faith and life, and I think that's probably my biggest thing now, is so often we just get so comfortable with what we're doing and in our jobs or whatever it may be, and yet God has so much more for us. And so keep believing, keep holding on, and just keep speaking that dream until it becomes a reality. Yeah.
Oh, Elise, thank you. And I can so resonate to everything that you've shared today.
Yeah.
And actually, I wasn't going to do this, but I just felt to share this little story that has just recently happened. So I find that so often, so I want to speak, like I have this desire to speak and to share, and but when I'm tired or just haven't had time with God, I get that really loud voice saying, you've got nothing to share, you've got nothing important to say. And so what I've started to do is just declare each day rather than listening to that voice. So like you're saying, you know, that declaring, and I was like, Lord, just encourage me and help me in this area to not listen to the fear, the lies, but to stay in your truth and what you speak over me. And so agreeing with what God's saying over you is so powerful. I love that you shared that. And then just yesterday, I've received 2 big invitations to speak. And it was after I put this stake in the ground only 3 days ago. I'm like, no, you have called me to speak. I will not agree with those lies. And started to declare, just like you have over your dream. And then things happen. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to have a look at what the lies are saying.
Yes.
God's saying the opposite, and to start declaring that, and put that stake in the ground. So whether you go and buy inscripted, you know, a name or whatever it is, I just, Elise, you have just given us some incredible tools, such gold, and it's so full of hope.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time. How can people find you and connect with you?
Oh, thanks, Lisa. No, well, my Insta handle is Elise Pappas, and Awaken Leadership is where we sell our books, so awakenleadership.online. And I've got a journal actually coming out soon that will accompany the Promise Keeper, just literally encouraging women, just believe your own promise, and to journal and to write your story down, so that in time you'll look back on it and just be astounded by God's goodness, even in a season of discomfort or despair. So awakenleadership.online, in short, Lisa. So thank you.
Oh, so wonderful. And I encourage everyone to jump online, have a look at what Elise and Daniel are doing. And definitely, if you haven't read Elise's book, I would thoroughly recommend it. I know you've written a few, but Promise Keeper is exceptional. So thank you for your time, beautiful Elise.
Thanks, Lisa. You're amazing.
You are. Thanks for joining me on Brave with Lisa. I hope that it has inspired or impacted you in a small or large way. Feel free to comment, to subscribe, and share with some friends. And please join us next week on another conversation we will have here on this channel on Brave with Lisa.